Professor Sylvester Odion-Akhaine, it's a pleasure having you on Sahara TV again, sir.
Thank you.
Yesterday, the APC unveiled its vice presidential candidate, Shettima, and there's been a lot of controversy over the Muslim ticket of the APC. From your perspective, is this politically expediency for Tinubu? I mean, to use a Muslim ticket. What optics will this create for the ruling party in the next forthcoming general elections?
Well, I think that such a question is valid in the context of the plurality of the Nigerian society. There are so many cleavages in the Nigerian society. One is a multi-ethnic, country, and it's also, in terms of religion, religious country, and not only that, in terms of even culture, a wide a range of diversity in terms of culture of our people and all of that. But why statecraft has been about trying to wed all of this diversity in ways that is functional for national development. Subsequent administrations have not helped, matter in terms of the divide and rule, of the peoples of this country along the lines of religion, along the line of ethnicity, along the line of language and other cultural nuances. That is it. And in the last 7 years, the incumbent administration has not run the governance of this country as one united entity. Rather, it has played up ethnic cleavages, to the extent that such adjectives as Kaaba, is dominant in public discourse in the country. And the accusations and claims of Islamization and Fulanization of the Nigerian state are there, in the public sphere. And so it is within that context that the 2023 general election will be conducted. And so Nigerians are no longer taking all of this development, for granted. Don't forget that almost what you might call systematic genocide is occurring across different parts of the country. In the Middle Belt, the indigenous people are being wiped out by so-called Fulani bandits or herdsmen. If you come to the down south here, we just witnessed recently, a horrible, massacre in Owo. You went to a Catholic church, parishioners who have just ended communion and service, you open fire and kill innocent people. That is the country. And so it is within this broad contradiction of the Nigerian state that the agitation for restructuring has been in vogue and has been topical in most discussions of well-meaning Nigerians and public intellectuals.
So, Prof, let me just get clarifications on this. Are you saying that the next 2023 elections will be decided along ethnic cleavages? And besides, I also seek your clarifications on the fact that currently none of the presidential candidates have actually mentioned the issue of restructuring in any of their political things.
You are making a point. My response is based on the questions you ask, particularly the Muslim tickets. So what I'm actually doing is to lay a very broad background, to place that issue in context. you know. And I mean, people have argued that the southwest of the country has been the most consistent in terms of calling for restructuring of the polity. And now people are afraid that it is now our locum and no longer restructuring. That criticism is already coming on board. So, but the point I'm making is that the cleavages in Nigeria have been accentuated by the maladministration of the incumbent regime or administration, to the extent that they can no longer be taken for granted. People genuinely want autonomy. People genuinely want this country to be refederalized. So when you have federal bureaucracy, security, architecture, and everything dominated, as it appears, by people of certain faith and people of certain region within the country, then the peoples of this country have cause to worry, particularly those that have been at the receiving end.
Of course.
And the development, raises two questions about what is political expediency. In the context in which we are today, is religion not of political expediency? That's the question. In a plural country like Nigeria, multi-ethnic, multi-religious, multicultural, multilingual, you can't wish away those factors. This is something that scholars have talked about in terms of the importance of how you build society, build development, govern society that is plural. And that calls for sensitivity to those plural factors or elements of society. And the only Nigerian scholar that has tried, in my opinion, to sketch around finding a solution to the pluralism of Nigeria is Odion-Akhaine, who talks about establishing a common code of morality. Doing to others what you will have them do unto you, in such a way that those diversity will not matter, because they have been reconciled at the level of that common code of morality. Now, in the last 7 years, the polarization of the diversities in Nigeria has reached a level that calls for caution. Yes, you might recall that in 1993 there was a Muslim ticket. It didn't matter. But the Nigerian ruling elites have always squandered historical opportunities for building a united Nigeria. And we saw how the election was annoyed. Now you then have a quasi-democratic administration under General Buhari that has played the ethnic card, in ways that has taken the issue of ethnicity, the issue of polarization and Islamization of the country to the public sphere. It's the subject of debate everywhere, and has also accentuated even the separatist impulses within the polity. Parts of the country wanted to go so that they can exercise their autonomy for self-actualization. That's the level it has gotten to. So today, religion has become not just a religion for religion's sake, but has assumed a socio-political character that you can only ignore it at your own peril. And so I have seen that people have tried to rationalize, Muslim ticket
In fact,
You know,
even Tinubu himself continued to defend his action, clamoring on competency as a major determinant with regards to this, to his
the
selection.
Nigerian ruling, no element in the Nigerian ruling class has given us competency. No element in the Nigerian ruling class has given us meritocracy. No element in the Nigerian ruling class has given us political commitment. None. And so, if you have taken if you have committed a faux pas, to borrow the French word, it is not, wise to continue to defend that mistake. Rather, you should find a way, other ways to explain it to Nigeria. You have taken a decision, you've taken it in the so-called best interest of Nigeria. Today, it is not. Because the evidence on ground, the political reality is that in the Middle Belt, indigenous people are being exterminated, ethnic cleansing is taking place, and the so-called Fulanis are occupying, locations and dwellings that indigenous people hitherto occupied, that they have killed, massacred, and driven away, to become eternally displaced, persons in the country. Those who survive the onslaughts.
Now,
And
Prof, let's also look at some of the shenanigans that played out at the unveiling yesterday. We had some individuals dressed in bishop and cardinal garbs, and in order to seem to give credence and of Christian support to the unveiling, to the Muslim ticket. Khan has actually come out to distance itself from those the so-called bishops. And what's your reaction to this?
I think that it's quite unfortunate. The unveiling itself was theatrical. It was a parody of some political exercise. It was clear to everyone that those who were posing as religious leaders were a hired lot. They were hired, for that purpose. And that action does not in any way put any gloss on the shortcomings, of the ticket itself. It does not in any way. And if anything, it gives me a picture of the fact that if APC were to win the presidency, it would be business as usual. Governance would be a joke. And the salvation that Nigerians are looking forward to, in terms of resolving what are called foundational issues or questions about the Nigerian state, will not be addressed. And the VP, the running mate, has so many question marks beyond even the religious issue. His involvement in the Boko Haram, complex, is one issue. And himself and Modu Sharif have traded wars in the past. And if you look at the internal politics of Borno, you can actually locate the provenance of Boko Haram insurgency within that context, beyond the external factors that have now fitted into the whole complex. So for me, I think it is quite, it's not, I'm looking for the right word, and I'm not sure that it's politically savvy or politically expedient, to have spawned the kind of, web in terms of the choice of running mate that is currently ongoing. Nigerians, they have been said to suffer from what Shoinka calls partial amnesia. But the contradictions of the Nigerian polity are such today that every Nigerian wants, this situation of hopelessness in the country to end. And they are ready to use their PVC. We only hope that the outgoing administration and the electoral management body that has received some kudos, against the background of your shoe election, will not betray the Nigerian people. From what we are seeing, Nigerians want a different, leadership, not the traditional leadership that we are used to, not those who are, hooked up to privatization, primitive accumulation of resources in this country, rent seeking, and mortgaging of the Nigerian national productive forces, to international finance capital. So that's what Nigerians, want, and I think that we can only hope that we'll be able to surmount the possible roadblocks that the ruling class may want to impose on the way of Nigerians making the right choice, of leadership.
Considering the political permutations and that is set to, we've had opposition candidates also coming up, the likes of Peter Obi, amongst the Nigerian youths, and as well as with his vice presidential candidate Dati Ahmed. I mean, what are the chances of a Peter Obi come 2023?
The chances of Peter Obi winning the presidency is bright. It's bright. I use the word bright. If the current momentum and electoral zeitgeist, or zeitgeist, as the Germans will pronounce it, among the Nigerian youth is anything to reckon with. It has a South-North, platform. The running mate is from the North, and I don't think that Dati Ahmed is it's not a pushover. He defeated Makarafi in an election, to go to the Senate in Kaduna. And information from the North also shows that the youth of the northern part of this country are also being fired by that ticket. And there is a mad rush to get PVC. And it's almost like it has become like a group action or a class action that people must get their PVC. And I think that is, very key in this respect. Atiku is an old guard.
Okay.
Atiku is an old guard. Then Bola Ahmed Tinubu is also an old guard. It's also an old guard. And there's basically nothing on the ground ideologically to differentiate, these candidates. Primarily the three candidates, but the only thing that Peter Obi and Dati Ahmed have as a positive factor is that they are younger than the other elements. And might want to chart a different course, if they are given the mandate. Because if he wins on the basis of populism, of the youth of this country, then he's also obliged to a large extent, or to some extent, not to betray, the aspiration of the Nigerian, youth. And once a betrayal occurs, what you will have is an unimaginable revolution. And I don't want to use unimaginable, unmanageable revolution, because Nigerians have had it to the heat.
Away from the presidential candidates, the ASU federal government face-off continues to linger on. And just yesterday, the president gave the Ministry of Education 2 weeks to resolve this crisis. And this has actually there seems to be no end with regards to that. NLC has also waded into it and is calling for a protest actions, which, yes, as today, the Nigerian federal government has actually declared as being illegal. How long will this, and why doesn't this government have the political will to resolve this crisis or this issue?
I think that part of the problem of Nigeria is the fact that the ruling clique, because if you call them ruling class, you are, kind of, you are doing justice to them, because the ruling class must be able to defend its own interest, do things in its own interest, not things that would delegitimize it. But you have a ruling clique, being a clique. They don't care about legitimacy. They don't care about delegitimization in terms of policy output. They don't even care about the security of their own members. Because if you look at the level of insecurity in Nigeria today, generals have been murdered by so-called bandits. Generals, you can count them. Bandits have attacked military formations in this country. That is the context in which you have a ruling clique. A ruling clique that is conscious of its own, survivor will know that you must invest in education. Albert Hisman talks about creating overcapacity in developing countries so that whatever developmental exigencies arise, you have the capacity to deal with it. I think that one thing that is characteristic of the Nigerian ruling class is that education is not prioritized. If education were to be prioritized, then you will see it reflect in budgetary allocation. You will see it reflect in the attention we pay to our tertiary institutions in the country. And if you look at members of the ruling class, virtually all their children, are in schools overseas. The governors, ministers, and the president himself, the children went abroad to school. And what they don't understand is that, as somebody in the academia, Nigeria has the potential, to outclass many institutions of learning in the world. We have the potential to outclass them. But for example, a professor receives less than $600 a month. In Ghana, I think it's almost about close to about $2,000 dollars. South Africa is about $5,000 plus dollars. The other countries in Africa, Nigeria is the least. About $600. So what they are doing is that they are fostering underdevelopment. Why pursuing their rent-seeking activities? Look to the oil industry. The only source of foreign exchange earning for the country is looted. In fact, they can't even meet their production quota. So that's the kind of ruling class you have. They cannot generate the resources. A ruling class that is of right now borrowing for governance, borrowing to service loan, and all of that. In fact, they are already using the insolvency that they have plunged the Nigerian government, the country into, as a basis to justify why they are not paying attention even to ASU. As I said, they don't prioritize education. Education is meaningless. Otherwise, they ought to see that a country as China, such as China, pour in about $1.6 trillion into education. constituted about 4% of its GDP. I think Indonesia also, in one first soup, put about 29.5% of its, income, national income, into education. That's Indonesia. So this country understands the place of education, and that if you want to develop, and if you want to elevate, the well-being of your citizens, and make governance easy even to run, you need a very, very educated population. If you must catch up with the rest of the world, you must have a very, very educated, population. So what the ruling class in Nigeria is doing, being a comprador bourgeoisie, they are entrenching the neo-colonial, cleavages within the country in such a way that we can never get out of external consumerism that we have already adopted, importing everything up to toothpick into the country. So the whole thing is to leave Nigerian impoverished, and perhaps they feel that by creating a disorder, they can profit from the disorder. And I think that is what I feel that the ruling clique in Nigeria is trying to do. It's a very simple thing. You enter into an agreement in 2009. You had a memorandum of understanding in 2012. You you conducted needs assessment in 2012, and also provided all the avenues, from which you can make the money to finance, to fund education, pay earn allowances, and improve the condition of the Nigerian, educational system overall. They agreed only to renege on it. Jonathan already even made some commitment, by giving, I think they paid about close over 200 billion, as part of the 1.3 trillion, naira that came out of the needs, assessment. But this regime came and started reneging on the negotiation, memorandum of understanding, and start, stonewalling about an agreement that you already signed. It is even easy to explain, you are dealing with a body of intellectuals. They know what the country earns. But when you see the lifestyles of politicians, you see the large-scale corruption that is ongoing within the system, you don't have a basis to say or to tell us why you cannot fund education. Because if you fund education, the leakages in the system will be blocked. There will be no money for people to steal. So at that time, production will normalize into actual production, exchange, distribution, and consumption. So the civil society, was carried out under successive military regimes. And, it was a binary order. A binary order in which it was the military versus the people. The cleavages that are in the Nigerian society are played up under a civil dispensation. One you have is a multi-party system. People. Well, I think that to say that Nigerians are not angry, is another statement. But to build up the critical mass for resistance is, it's an issue that commands a question mark. But don't forget that there was an answers, which was, it was conducted in a way that was peaceful, and demands were made. Demands were made. So one would have expected that the government should have learned, from that situation. So, but having said that, The character of a civilian dispensation and the character of a military dispensation are two different things. Under military rule, it was clear, to be able to say who the enemy is. The tough was binary, the military and the rest of us. So it was easy to put every atrocity of misgovernance on the doorstep of the military. And people were mobilized against the military, which of course led to the exit of the military in 1999. Whatever the dynamics of that process were. But under a civilian regime, the cleavages of a plural society are played up. Some party draw their political support from their ethnic, basis. An Hausa man will try to draw his political support from his Hausa, constituency. A Kanuri man will want to do the same thing. An Igbo man will want to do the same thing. And a Yoruba man will want to do, the same thing in terms of building a political base. These are the issues. So once those cleavages are accentuated, it becomes difficult to build a common front. It's only when you have an issue that confronts everybody. Again, we can't talk about the obverse of all the our famous code of common morality. In this case, we talk about a common enemy threatening, the existence of everyone. Then you can see Nigerians uniting to confront that behemoth. That was the kind of thing you see over the oil subsidy in 2012, I guess, against Jonathan. So those are the constraints why it has become, difficult. But as I said much earlier, once it then comes to the issue of existential reality, that people can no longer eke out a daily existence, Nigerians will react. And that was why I talked about an anarchic revolution in which no one might be completely in charge at the end of the day. Because what you have now, you already have, disorder being democratized across the country. Bandits, herdsmen, ISWAP, what else? Boko Haram operating everywhere. Kidnappers, you name it. In fact, somebody was speculating that the next target of banditry in Nigeria will now be the aircrafts, the airplanes. Because you can't travel by road, you can't travel by train. So there's already a generalized anarchy or a democratized anarchy in the country. And if you get to a point that no one will be safe, you've seen it in the clamor by some state governors that citizens should arm themselves. So that tells you, the bleak future that we as Nigerians, we face.